Hi everyone, this is Whitney with my week 2 video discussion post, just answering questions that I asked. For question 1, talking about culture, for me, on a personal level, culture is very, individual. It comes from my day-to-day experiences and how I live my life, raising kids, working in a school environment, and living a more homestead type lifestyle in a rural community. um, I think that mix of things really shapes how I see really everything in life, but especially responsibility and how I communicate. And then for historical, I think I have a lot of history that shapes my culture, but I think a lot of that is growing up rurally when I was very young until I was a teenager, and then moving to a bigger city where I experienced a lot more than I would have ever experienced in my hometown. I think that those experiences gave me the exposure that I needed in order to be the person I am. They didn't just, all those expectations I have of myself and the idea that I have of a family structure and what I like to see and what I like to be around, those things didn't just appear. They've been built over time throughout my entire life. And then contextual, a big thing for me is where I live now. I've mentioned this before. I live in a rural community once again, and I think that I have never quite realized how much growing up in Eugene as a teenager, um, I was exposed to a lot more diversity and different perspectives and cultures than living in a small town. And I noticed that these people tend to have less exposure to these things, and it affects how they communicate and understand and treat others. And then for question 2, how it impacts communication. One example that really impacts me, like I already said, is the difference between a larger city and a rural town. Because I've experienced both multiple times in my life, and I tend to be more cognitive and aware that not everyone has that same, um, I guess, luck. I can't think of another word off the top of my head. And being immersed in those different communities and seeing how people of those cultures interact and behave and um, communicate. Question 3, cultural universals. Cultural universals are things that um, kind of exist against or across all cultures, though they don't necessarily look the same in each culture. They're based on value and orientations, um, and what is it? Hofstede's, is that how you say it? Dimensions. We know that all cultures deal with um, similar questions, um, and like overall umbrellaing ideas like relationships and power, but they answer those questions differently. So a universal isn't to me so much that people all do the same thing, but that they all have things like family and communication and certain traditions or holidays or systems of um, values that um, they may differ, but they all have them. You can really like point a finger at a universal by asking what is something every culture has in some form. Like, and like culture being kind of a diverse way. Like, if you think of culture as, um, like, certain cultures dress a certain way or certain cultures talk a certain way, but it could be so many things. It could be um that families look a certain way, or they communicate a certain way, or they celebrate a certain way, or certain things are right and certain things are wrong, and it although it may not be the same, they all have these things. Yeah, overall, understanding cultural as personal, historical, and contextual, I feel like really kind of helped me to, in my own mind, explain why people communicate the way that they do and why it's important to stay open and be aware of differences that people have. Um, yeah, that is it. I hope everyone had a great week and found this week's readings and lectures as interesting as I did.